Back. Now let's move on to part B, number 1, machine epsilon. Now part B is about floating point numbers, and I find something called machine epsilon. Machine epsilon is related to the precision of floating point numbers. More specifically, it tells us the approximate smallest difference from one that the computer can distinguish in floating point arithmetic. So I start with um, EPS 1.0 and steps is equal to 0. Then I use a while loop. So while 1.0 plus EPS factorial equals 1.0. So here, as you can see here, this is the code. And then the program checks whether adding f's to 1 still produces a value different from 1. So here, as you can see here, inside the loop, f's f slash box f slash is equal to 2 point and steps is equal to plus equals 1. The first line divides epsilon by 2, making it smaller, and the second line counts the how many times I divided it. So the value becomes smaller and smaller. Eventually, the epsilon becomes so small that the computer cannot distinguish from 1.0 plus epsilon from 1.0. At that point, the condition becomes false and the loop stops. Then I calculate 2 asterisk f's to get the machine epsilon value. For a typically 64-bit floating point number, the result is approximately 2.2 times 10 to the power of negative 16. So as you can see here, so 2.2 then to the power of negative 16. This shows that the floating point numbers have very high precision, but they still have a limit. So, alright, that's all for part number 1. And let's move on to part B number 2. Now, part B number 2, I investigate overflow. So, overflow happens when a number becomes too large for a computer's floating point format to represent. So, as you can see here, I start with value 1.0, step 0, and so on. Then I repeatedly multiply the value by 2. While here, as you can see here, the while loop, which is infinite and so on, the value becomes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. The number continues becomes larger until it reaches to the maximum range of the floating point type. And after that, the result becomes float infinite. And the nth here is meaning infinity. So this section demonstrates that a computer cannot store infinitely large number. So that's all for part B number 2, and let's move on to part B number 3. So in part B number 3 is the opposite of overflow. This is the underflow. This time, instead of making the numbers larger, I make it smaller. So I start with the value 1.0 and step equals 0. Then I repeatedly divided it by 2. So as you can see here, the while loop, which is that, and then the value becomes 1 and 0.5 and 0.25 and 0.125 and so on. So eventually the number becomes smaller and smaller and extremely smaller. At some point, it becomes too small to represent as a non-zero floating point value and it reaches 0. This is called the underflow. So the simple difference is overflow means the number is too large and underflow means the number is too small. And let's move on to part B, number 4. In part B, number 4, first is I import numpy. Import numpy as NP. NumPy allows me to work with different numerical data types. For the first test, I use EPS. As you can see here, in the first step, I use EPS underscore 32 equals NP float. As you can see here at the arrow. And this creates a 32-bit floating point number. I then use the same process as before to find its machine epsilon. So as you can see here, I use the while loop as same as before. And then and then next is I test the standard Python floating point type fs underscore 64 is equal to 1. So as you can see here in the while loop here, on a typical system, Python standard float uses 64-bit floating point representation. The main difference between them is precision. Float 32 uses 32 bits, so it has less precision. And float 64 uses 64 bits, so it has more precision than the float 32. The typical machine epsilon for float 32 is approximately 1.19 times 10 to the power of negative 7. So as you can see here in the result in the terminal, while float 64 is approximately 2.22 times 10 to the power of negative 16. This means float 32 can represent much smaller difference around 1 than float 32. The table and the end makes this comparison easier to see. So that's all for part B, guys. And let's move on to part C. So in part C, which demonstrate in part C, number 1, now is which we demonstrate floating point errors. For part C, number 1, I test this A is equal to 0.1, B is equal to 0.2, and so on. So we might expect the program to return true. However, the result is usually false. The reason is that computers store a floating point number using binary. Some decimal numbers cannot be represented exact in binary, so instead of storing exactly 0.1, the computer stores a very close approximation. The same thing happens with 0.2 and 0.3. When I add 0.1 and 0.2, the result may actually be slightly greater than 0.3. That is why the comparison A plus B double equal C can return false. I also display the values with 17 decimal places. So in 17 decimal places, as you can remember, float 17 is the code. So as you can see here, F17 here the pala. This allows me to see a small difference that normally isn't visible. The main lesson is floating point numbers are approximation, not always exact representation of decimal numbers. So let's move on to part C number 2. Accumulated error about this topic. Finally, in number 2, part C, this demonstrates how small errors can accumulate. I start with total equals zero point 0.0, and then I add 0.1 10,000 times for underscore in range 1000, and so on. Mathematically, we accept 0.1 times 10,000 equals 1000. So I set expected 1000. So here, as you can see here, I expect code here. After the loop, I compare the actual result with the expected result. First, I calculate the absolute error, which is mm, abs is equal to absolute total minus expected. Absolute error tells me how far the calculated value is from the expected value. Then I calculate the relative error. So relative error is equal to absolute error over expected error. Relative error tells me how larger the error is compared with the expected answer. And then the error is normally very small, but it demonstrates an important concept. Even though the error from one addition of zero point 0.1 is extremely small, repeating the operation thousand times can cause the error to accumulate. And to sum up everything, this laboratory demonstrates both basic Python programming and numerical computing concepts. So in part A, I learned how to use variables, users input, mathematical formulas, functions, and loops. And also, what I learned in part B also is I investigate the limitation of floating point numbers, and I learn about machine epsilon, overflow, underflow, and the difference between float 32 and float 64. And also in part C, I demonstrated that floating point calculations are not always exact. The example of zero point 0.1 plus zero point 0.2 shows the decimal number may be stored as approximation. The repeated addition of zero point 0.1 also shows how small errors can accumulate. For overall, the I finally get from this laboratory activity is that computers are very precise, but their numerical calculation still have limitations. So understanding these limitations is important, especially when working with scientific calculations, engineering, finance, or any program that requires accurate numerical results. That concludes my explanation. Thank you for listening, and that's all for today.